Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Attack on Titan, the final chapter, chapter 139. Hey everybody, so this is going to be my quick review for the chapter. I'm going to talk about it. The way that this video is going to be structured, I'm going to talk about neutral talking points. I'm going to talk about the things I liked, and I'm going to talk about the things I didn't like. For this finale, it was pretty much a mixed bag for me. It's an ending, and it's one of those endings that it's what I slow down and I think about. I can't go into it excited. It's not an ending that excites me or makes me think like wow. It's an ending I have to slow down and be like, okay, this is probably what they were trying to go with, or what they were trying to do in this particular scene. It's an ending that requires more thinking to understand. For me it requires more thinking to just justify what it is that the point of the ending was and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I've broken it down into neutral talking points, positive and the negative talking points. I feel that would be the most fair way of going about it. I think that expresses pretty well the mixed bag that I personally had for the ending of Attack on Titan. Now, a very quick recap for those who don't know. I've followed Attack on Titan ever since the first anime aired. I've followed it monthly whenever it would come out. I don't regret my time on the series in any which way whatsoever. I'm not one of those people that says an ending ruins the rest of the series. The series had its low points, it had its high points. For me, I think the time I was the most excited for Attack on Titan was when we were getting the reveals of what was going on with Aaron's dad, and specifically that Aaron's dad was being haunted by his son's memories and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, that was definitely pinnacle Attack on Titan for me. Which, the ending arc doesn't really capture it for me anymore. But it's not going to take away how much I enjoyed the series at that point in time. One thing I want to say before getting into it, just with my interpretation of the ending and all that, I don't think this is correct, but when I'm looking at the final chapter, one thing I really do agree with Mikasa in that the bird at the end is Eren. Initially, I was going to say that Eren somehow had the power to see to the future because of paths being weird, some kind of timey-wimey shenanigan with paths. I don't know how to justify it. There's a lot of things I don't care to justify in Attack on Titan, like how everyone got to be, well, not Titans because of Ymir's final decisions or whatever. But I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough room for that. To say that Eren could see into the future, because I don't know, to make that conclusion you have to assume that he gains a new power after dying, which I mean you don't really know. Like, ghosts are a thing in Attack on Titan. I think that's pretty clear, but you don't really know. I think a safer alternative, though, when you're looking at the final pages, the final page is Mikasa thanking a bird as it flies away, and you see a giant wing. It's like the imagery there is pretty much, this is the wing of freedom. So if you take wing of freedom into consideration, those final pages with Mikasa might just be implying that Eren is finally free, as represented by the wing. He was like, given that the bird went out of its way to help Mikasa wrap that thing around her neck, that's most likely Eren. Most likely, I mean, I guess safe to say not through Titan mechanisms, but maybe just through some kind of standard reincarnation kind of thing. The thing that would justify it is that Eren always wanted to be free, and one thing that the chapter tells you is that Eren was most definitely not free. Given the implications here, I believe it's fair to say that Eren reincarnated into a bird. He can fly as freely as he wants now. Given that the wing symbolizes freedom in Attack on Titan, I feel that's a safe bet. So Eren's spirit lives on. He most likely jumps across many birds. But that's my interpretation. Anyway, let's get into the solid review. So we're starting with the neutral points. The neutral points are pretty much just general talking points that I don't feel any which way about, but I feel are, again, worth talking about. My first neutral point is the issue of Eren's autonomy. So one of the things that I find the most interesting is just how little control it's implied that Eren has. And I say implied, but it's really Eren tells us he has no real control here, in multiple places. But the reason this is interesting is just because the autonomy issue is what creates a lot of the complaints that I've seen for Attack on Titan's ending, which is fair because this was a very divisive thing to be done. Um, Now, in the chapter, it's implied that from the very beginning, from the moment he was born, Eren is not free. When you read the chapter, what you should be thinking is that the guy that wanted freedom the most was never free. And I think one of the best pages that really showed this is the page where it seems like he got loaded with some memories from the moment he was born. That was very aggressive. And given the fact that the founding Titan has always been able to manipulate the memories of its subjects, yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting that, again, the shine of the eye when he's born, what an interesting move. Now, that said, right above that, Eren flat out says, I don't know why, but I wanted to do that. I had to. And when you look at his other spots, Eren admits that his thoughts have become incoherent as well, so he's not seeing the logic within his own thoughts. Ultimately, what you have here is a situation where Eren's autonomy is arguably stripped from him. And what's interesting about this is just the effect that you produce when you have a character flat out saying, I don't know why, but I want to do that. I had to. When you have a character saying that they don't know why they did the things they did, you're already in kind of murky territory. In the case of Attack on Titan, a thing that was occurring was that Eren was making very sophisticated choices. And at some points, and these choices required a certain degree of maturity behind them. Now, when you have a character come in and say that they didn't know why they did the things they had to do, you change the equation such that these incredible movements no longer need the maturity associated to them. Instead, you only need the external situation to force the character to do it. Once you have a strong enough external force, the quality of the character that is acting under that force no longer really matters. And this is really one of the things that would have bothered the fan base, especially for everyone that was actually interested in seeing how Eren was suffering through all of this. Saying that he ultimately doesn't know why he did the things he did, it takes away some of that oomph. How could that have been improved? Were there any other things that the author could have done to have made that a little bit more palpable, a little bit more digestible? I think so, but he would have had to have gone a little bit further back to make some changes. A quick change that he could have done was not have Eren admit to not knowing why he did the things he did, at least not so easily. If you want to salvage a character, like the situation with Eren in particular, is that the readers wanted to see a sophisticated Eren. They wanted to see a guy who had a giant plan. They didn't want to see necessarily a slave to fate and all that kind of stuff. They didn't want to see a foregone conclusion. To salvage that, what you do is, since Eren has the freedom of infinite time, because we know that's how time flows in Path, as Eren tells us, there's no real past or future in there, so it's a timeless zone. In order to make the compromise, you could have taken advantage of that fact, and then instead of having Eren just say he doesn't know why he did the things he did, you could have had Eren describe more of his trauma to Armin. You could have had Eren talk more about the things that he learned. Like maybe he could have said, I tried hard and hard to circumvent this fate. I tried so many things. I tried to learn about how paths worked over like 1,000 years, 100,000 years. I mean, it takes thingamabob, whoever who knows however much time to make all the different Titan bodies, right? Time doesn't matter. You could have had Eren do this, and in that case, even if Eren ultimately fails and says like, even though I did all that, I still don't know why I was compelled to do the things I did, that would come off differently, because at that point you can say like, oh shit, well, even though this guy tried so hard to understand the mechanics of the world that he lived in, he still got nowhere. That's a different level of tragedy, other than the kid that always wanted to be free was ultimately just a slave to the causality of the universe. Like when you look at this, it's pretty much time is maintaining itself. When you have Eren saying that he doesn't know why, but he had to do it, that's pretty much the force of time or fate pretty much acting on him. I think that's the safest thing to say there. So yeah, that would have been, I think, a salvage for the character, because that adds the layer of he actually tried to do something within his situation other than just being led by an impulse. For me, this is a neutral point, because the ultimate message of, well, Eren was a slave to fate, or he was never truly free, especially with the consideration of the ending, is like, okay, I understand what you were doing. I do wish it could have come off better. I do wish you could have executed on this a little bit better, but otherwise, Fair point. The other neutral point I have is the idea of fear unifying the island. I thought this was actually very real. I thought this was good. I like seeing a bunch of characters that we saw from the past in those shots as little cameos. I think that was very interesting overall to say that in fear they were unified against the world. I mean, simple enough. It characterizes the population. Again, I think it's a very reasonable response. And in all of that, I like seeing Historia and her allies. I spotted that the lady from that one friendly place, I forget what it's called, but yeah, I saw that they're still unified, so they have allies that they can still call upon. Seeing that segment for the island, I felt that was a sophisticated conclusion for them and their setup. Now we're moving on into things that I really liked. So first off, the thing with Bertolt. So I was very confused as to what exactly that was referencing. I had to go back into the manga. I had to go to the wiki to find the manga chapter. But I found the manga chapter. It was like chapter 94, 95, 96. 96. It was chapter 96. So I am happy that we had the answer as to why the Smiling Titan ultimately ignored Bertolt and went into the place. Now, Eren in this chapter tells us, well, yeah, it was him. He didn't want to get Bertolt killed, which is interesting because that implies that that was a branch point for fate. But what it really tells you is just that at the end of the day, this Eren situation was a locked loop. It was always going to happen this way. Like Eren's action of sending that Titan in, it's a loop. It's always going to be in there. Anyway, when I look at it though, the big thing here is just the Smiling Titan ignores Bertolt. I'm not convinced that Eren sent the Smiling Titan towards his mother, but I am convinced Eren sent the Smiling Titan just straight into the town, where then the Smiling Titan took over. I don't know either. Maybe Eren thought like, well, now I have to make sure we get this particular ending and sets me on this path. It's really hard to tell. Paths makes everything hard, but I enjoyed that. That was an answer. I forgot all about that plot point, so I guess the author didn't, which probably means he was thinking about it for a while. Next thing I liked was actually Eren's 80% plan. Like, on first glance, it feels, wow, this is really, really sad. But it makes sense. I mean, if only 20% of the population is left, then you have the island with their allies there as well, possibly helping them out. It's like, yeah, actually, I could legitimately believe the island, this gives the island the opportunity to build their forces. Yeah, no, like 20% of the population can't really do much. When you look at it, it's not, when you look at it, only a very small portion of the population actually contribute to forwarding a population's development scientifically. So yeah, no, 20% of people, a lot of that percentage are useless people for the purpose of technological development, whereas the island might still have quite a lot of their innovators still intact. So I think this was, yes, very sad, very macabre, very unfortunate, but Eren was very set on saving his own people, even though he didn't know how exactly that was going to turn out. He was making a gamble. He was going for this ending here. I think the 80% thing was an interesting gamble, and I really actually liked it. Again, one thing you have to keep in mind here is that Eren doesn't know how things turn out after he is taken down. So it is really just stacking the odds in Armin's favor, which that whole thing about him not knowing everyone's fates after they stop him, he only knew for sure that he was going to be stopped. Yeah, I'm into that point. I like that too. The next thing I really enjoyed was Eren's immaturity. This kind of jumps off from Eren's autonomy. Eren's autonomy being taken away from him in this chapter pretty much just says that, like I said earlier, he doesn't have the required maturity to handle these situations. And if he doesn't have the required maturity, it's just saying that he's ultimately immature. So when you ultimately see him there talking about how much he likes Mikasa, it's like, yes, this makes sense. It's actually very consistent with the idea that Eren didn't have much of a choice in some areas here. When we see Eren yelling about Mikasa, that's the truest Eren. That's the Eren that we pretty much started the series with. It's unfortunate that a guy that could commit himself to taking out 80% of the population could never figure out how to talk to a girl. Really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. This is how far this went. But I just like it because it just reminds you how much of a loser Eren is in some ways, only when it comes to talking to Mikasa. Actually, Nah, he's alright. It's only been talking to Mikasa. It's just ultimately really funny, you know. Yeah, yeah, make these big. You can handle the concept of risking your friend's life, but you can't talk to the girl you like. This is just Aaron, right? This is just 100% Aaron. This just fits him. It fits him so well. This is his tunnel vision in full force. Yeah, no, I know some people didn't like this, but this is true. This is truer to the character than everything that was forced upon him. The final thing that I really liked was Connie's mom. Actually, no. Second last thing I liked was Connie's mom being okay. Look, cut him some slack. Man, the guy suffered, and knowing Jean's family was taken under protection as well was also very nice. The final thing that I really liked was Rainer being a loser. I am 100% in on make Rainer suffer. I love seeing that he's always denied his death, and seeing him finally sniff what is it, Historia's penmanship or letter or whatever. It's like, all right, yes, yes, live like a scumbag, Rainer, for the rest of your life. Yeah, no, made me feel pretty happy. Oh, you know, technically something else I also really liked thinking about it was Aaron talking to a bunch of his friends. With the no, like, there are people that Aaron didn't talk to, like Piek, but I like knowing that the main people got talked to. I forgot to mention that I forgot to have that in my list, but the reason is because it's linked to something that I didn't like. And now we go into the things I didn't like. I've got 4 items generally here, and we're gonna begin with the lack of time. So I think technically this is probably what hits the chapter the worst. I don't think there was enough time to wrap things up. I don't think they planned the last 3 chapters very well. I think some things dragged on 2 chapters ago. I think this chapter would have done better with maybe double the pages, or maybe like a third more of the pages. The big thing here, I wanted more closure. I would have loved way more closure. I would have loved to see all the conversations, even if it's just one panel for each person beyond what we got here, of just them talking. Like the main summary points, I would have enjoyed that. I would have liked having that full closure, and not having that and seeing how things had to get, you know, wrapped up. It just makes me feel that, you know, they decided there was going to be a final chapter. Maybe they scheduled it for the manga, and then like maybe the author realizes, oh no, you know, maybe there's a few more things I could have added in here, but they don't have time. Yeah, not this is ultimately one of the big things when it comes to a manga ending. You never really know how much time they're given to end the manga after they declare that the manga is ending, because of maybe just the requirements of publication. We don't know how far in advance these things have to be booked. It's hard to tell. Ultimately, I think everyone can agree that we could have had more material specifically to close out the characters, but we don't really get it. Next thing I really don't like was Ymir's justification being love. Or justification for everything that she endures is love. So the thing is, in the previous chapter, when you see Ymir just smiling at Mikasa beheading Eren, it's like, man, I want to know what is up with this girl. Because this is just, why does she do the things she do? What was she doing this entire time? What does she want to see? You know, the chapter does give us an answer. She wanted to see Mikasa's joys. The thing is, this was built up. This was going to be a big thing because Ymir is the cornerstone of everything. And what the author ultimately chose here was, for such a gigantic situation that must have had a wicked wild justification, he chose one of the most nebulous concepts, one of the concepts that is so hard to properly conceptualize and properly measure. It doesn't follow logic, it doesn't follow rationality. The author chose to rely on love, the big giant concept that can be used among a few other concepts to just sweep everything under the rug. Just lop on. Ymir loved Karl Fritz. It's unfortunate. I don't like when love is used like this, because it's such a giant concept. Authors make use of it to justify insane things. The only other thing that's comparable to love in terms of it being a sweep away all the details type thing is insanity. When it comes to manga, authors will either use incredible insanity or love, or a combination of both. Actually, when you see Ymir's situation, this is probably a combination of both, in the sense that Ymir has Stockholm syndrome or some variation of Stockholm syndrome. Now, again, from the writing perspective, I understand it in the sense that maybe this was just too big of a situation to even ever be able to properly justify. I mean, like Aaron says it, this guy like, destroyed her family, cut out her tongue, all kinds of things. And Aaron's ultimately saying like, yeah, I can't understand what's in her heart, and it's like it's unfortunate that the author has to black box the heart in order to justify this extraordinary situation. So that's pretty much it. Justifying or sweeping away the extraordinary situation with something that is extraordinarily hard to conceptualize, measure, have proper extents for. There is no rationality when love gets involved. It's a get out of jail free card. I don't like it. Ymir was interesting. I would, even if you want to say that she ultimately loves him, I would have rather have heard that from Ymir herself instead of having Aaron secondhand narrate us. And that goes into the lack of time. I would have liked seeing Ymir tell us herself in her words. I don't care if she doesn't have a tongue. She can use her mind. It's paths. Tell us in her own words what it is exactly that she did things for instead of having Aaron guess at it. I would have liked Ymir to be more of a character as opposed to a mechanism or a plot device, and that is unfortunate. Next thing, jumping off of that point, I don't like that Ymir had to look to Mikasa to be the one to tell her, like, hey, guess what? Even if you love someone, sometimes you have to make hard choices. Or even if you love someone, doesn't mean you have to be a slave to them or only do things that will make them happy, right? Because, like, really think about that. That concept isn't that hard to conceptualize. You can conceptualize many situations where it's better to challenge someone you love as opposed to just do everything they say. Like abusive relationships, it's one place where you obviously can tell, yes, you probably should get away from that, but Ymir's already too far gone, right? She's got Stockholm. Let's say she has Stockholm or some variation of it. But in going into like regular situations, if your partner or if your loved one has, let's say, incredible addictions, do you say yes when they say, like, I'm just going to keep having more of this, you can't tell me what to do? No, you challenge them, right? For adults, the understanding is that love is something that might help you weather the storm of the difficulties that loving someone might bring along. That's the promise of love when it's there and fully strong, and that's something that adults understand. Now, mind you, Ymir is such a nebulous thing, an entity, that we can't apply things here normally. But yeah, no. Ultimately, when you're looking at this whole thing relies on Ymir seeing part of herself in Mikasa, because she ultimately looks at Mikasa as a thing that if Mikasa shows me that she can act against the person she loves, then I can do it too. And in that sense, Ymir is still very much a prisoner. She's looking for someone to show her that it's possible for her to do something, and that part actually is legitimately respectable from the writing perspective. But from the author's perspective, this is just a pretty sad situation. First off, Ymir and Mikasa's situations are not the same. Ymir finding Mikasa to be the one to show her the way is pretty much Ymir saying that there's no one else that is even comparable to my situation, and Mikasa most certainly is. Mikasa is the one that gets the closest. At the end of the day, Ymir's love is born from a extremely terrible situation. It's an obsession born from that, from a point of just a lot of negativity. Whereas Mikasa's obsession, if you're going to call it an obsession, is born from a moment of heroism, because we all know what Eren did for Mikasa's life. So that's the fundamental issue there when it comes to having Mikasa associated to Ymir. The situations that bred the love that both of the girls have, even if the love is irrational or obsessive, the origin of that love is so fundamentally different that this comparison should not have been made, I think. And ultimately, when I see it here, I think this was just the author making the best of a bad situation. He legitimately had no one else that could fit the role of showing Ymir that it's possible to act against the person you love. When I see that commonality being made, it's entirely because the author had no other resources, and he was making the best of a bad situation. And now the final thing is another criticism at the author's choices here, because I think this is more the author than anything else, but it's pretty much the final praising of Eren. And this occurs now, mind you, the translations might be a little bit off, and we obviously have to keep that in mind. But I think I don't think things work as well when Eren doesn't have full autonomy. And specifically, when Rainer in the fan translation says, Eren, what a man you are, or like I think in the Crunchyroll, he doesn't say that. So his in Crunchyroll's translation, it's not as solid, but let's assume there's a positivity to his lines. And Eren for sure. Eren thanking, Armin thanking Eren for genociding people for his friend's sake. That is just like both of those things. I feel it's the author giving Eren a pat on the back of trying to make Eren into this bigger hero, trying to like amplify the tragedy. I don't think it works when right before it you have Eren admitting that he doesn't know why he does the things he does. When you're thanking Eren for genociding the characters and the character doesn't know why he did the things he did, what are you thanking exactly? I know what you're thinking. When you look at the when you look at the rhetoric about how since the day he was born, it's potentially possible that Eren was on this path. You're not thanking Eren. No, not really. You're thanking Eren for being a slave to fate. You're thanking Eren for being in chains. You're thanking Eren for doing You're thanking Eren for just following the motions. That's who you're thanking. You're thanking him for suffering and being unable to escape and make things better. You're thanking time for putting Eren in that position. That's who is being thanked when Armin is giving that thanks. This is one of the side effects of what happens when you take autonomy away from the character. The character's accomplishments are no longer their own if they never had a choice in their accomplishments. And mind you, there are fringe cases where when the autonomy taken away isn't too aggressive, you can still kind of argue like, oh, he did his best within the hand that he was dealt or something like that. But in Eren's case, this is just so dramatically exaggerated that it makes it a lot harder. Now, the most extreme case, to give you an example of just where this would be absolutely insane as opposed to dubious, like it is here, would be if like someone has been mind controlled for their entire life by another force altogether, and they do like 10 things, and then a character comes in like, oh yeah, thanks for doing those 10 things. And they're talking to the person directly, not the mind control. And it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't work. You're not thanking the person. You're thanking the person for being a meat puppet. That's pretty much what it is at that particular situation. And that's what I don't like here. I think what happens here is that the author wants to give Eren a little bit of a send off, make Eren look like a tragic hero, and he is. But in the process of going hard on conveying that point, because Armin's saying thanks for doing such a terrible thing for their sakes, it is meant to give Eren a little bit of a reprieve. But in doing that, with the issue that Eren doesn't have full control of his actions, it doesn't strike as well as it should. And again, when you're thanking Eren for genociding right after he says he doesn't know why he did the things that he had to do, that he just wanted to do it, the kid was never in control of his actions from the day he was born. And again, that's what makes that final page even more interesting. From the day he was born, he was never free. It's only in death that he maybe potentially has a chance at freedom. And that's ultimately why I don't like this final line. I think those lines of thanking are ultimately the product of a conflict between different messages within the chapter and the series in general. And when you put these incredible situations together, it creates an incredible conundrum in that you're thanking a person for being a slave. But that's all. That's all the things I have to say for it. Overall, I'm happy for the chapter. It gave me things to talk about. I personally really enjoy talking about the good, the bad, and the neutral. So as a talking point, the chapter was very good for me. I truly, legitimately enjoyed it in that sense. Am I the most excited about it? No, not really. I think ever since Buddy Guy has got all beat up by Zeke, hasn't been able to move, like, that kind of took away a lot of my excitement. But hey, at least we got to see him in a wheelchair. At least he got to see his buddies. But whatever. Anyway, guys, I would love to know what you thought down below. Let me know what you think of the final chapter of Attack on Titan, and let me know if you're like really disappointed, why you're disappointed, or if you're okay with this. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.